So, there are some misconceptions out there about the best way to get more stem cells in your body. And it was believed for a long time that it only helped certain areas of the body. And so, when you discovered all of this and you found there was this new way to introduce stem cells or generate stem cells into the body in a very natural, inside out approach. Now let's talk a little bit about STEMREGEN and how you discovered it started off with one plant and now it's multiple plants
Correct.
and other ingredients. So yeah, let's talk about STEMREGEN.
So, going back to what I was saying in the introduction, I was working with this blue green algae, looking at how it was working. We discovered that it is working in mobilizing stem cells, releasing stem cells from the bone marrow, or at least I should say, increasing the number of stem cells in circulation, and they are most likely coming from the bone marrow. So, as soon as I observed that phenomenon, now understand, I'm coming from brain research. This is my background. So stem cells is not something that I know very well. So I dove into the whole literature of adult stem cells and to really try to understand as much as I could in that field. And it became clear very rapidly going through the scientific literature that it was an extraordinarily prolific field, but disjointed, like articles all over the place, thousands and thousands of articles. I don't know if there's a field of medicine that has more studies than the field of stem cell research, but everybody is kind of working in their small area. And as I'm going through all this literature, there's something that emerged very quickly from the literature that to me was obvious, but it took quite some time for this to really become a thing in the scientific world, in the medical world. Is that while the first reflex of scientists was to go and isolate stem cells from the bone marrow, from the fat tissue, from the blood, hair follicles, dental pulp, umbilical cord, these are sources of stem cells. We actually release them every day. Every day we release these stem cells from our bone marrow. A stem cell is released and will be in your bloodstream for about 6 hours, 1 to 6 hours. It will either find a tissue where to migrate or will go back to the bone marrow. And that process takes place all the time. As scientists started to study the ability of stem cells to repair various organs and tissues, using a method like, for example, injecting fluorescent stem cells in an animal, then creating an injury in a tissue, and looking at the healing being filled with new cells of that tissue with their fluorescent, showing that they came from the stem cells that were injected. And then with animals that were kept alive after the end of the study, 2, 3, 4, 5 months later, if you start to look at the entire animal, they started to realize that every organ and tissue had cells that were fluorescent, meaning that yes, they repair, but in the background, stem cells go into all the tissues. So the image that really came out from all this literature is that your stem cells from your bone marrow every day of our lives repair what is broken and replace the cells that are being lost, and every single tissue of the body go through this process of turnover, meaning that at, let's say, at 40-year-old, you don't have a 40-year-old liver. You don't have a 40-year-old pancreas or heart or brain or lung or anything. You have a new liver every 2, 3 years. So at 40, maybe you're on your 10th liver. And same thing with a pancreas. So if everything goes in turnover, and at the same time, there's another phenomenon that is crucial to understand. We are born with red marrow that makes stem cells, but the red marrow converts into fatty marrow, yellow marrow that does not make stem cells. And by age 30, we have lost more than 90% of our red marrow. So there's a point that as we lose cells every day as part of this turnover process, the number of stem cells available to replace the cells that are being lost is not enough. And that is when we start to discover in our 30s that we're not Superman or Wonder Woman. You know, you start to get up in the morning and you realize, I need to pay attention to my health. A thought that in your 20s never, ever
Right.
crosses your mind.
Right.
That's when we start to experience aging, and we will develop problems down the road that will be the direct consequence of how many stem cells I have today in my bloodstream to replace the cells that are being lost. So stem cells is becoming a central understanding of health maintenance or disease formation. So as all of that literature kind of was coming, I was going through all of this literature, and as all this concept really came out from that literature, I thought the most powerful way of utilizing stem cells is just releasing your own every day and support this natural process. And I had discovered that plant that was doing this. So we developed we discovered or documented the mechanism of action, the active compound. We did a proof of concept into an injury model in animals, which is what you have to do in science to prove the concept. So we did all that work. And as soon as that was done, my thought was, if we have evolved in symbiosis with the environment, and stem cells are the repair system of the body, there has to be other plants that have an effect on stem cells. So let's look at other plants known historically to be associated with many benefits, and let's go look at them. What are they? Medicinal mushroom. All adaptogens. What is an adaptogen? It's something that does a lot of things good for you, but we don't know how. So because we have never looked at stem cells. So I thought maybe it's stem cells. So I started to look at some of them, goji berries, and we found they all have an effect on stem cells. Then I went into remote areas of the world, like you go to Madagascar, outside of the global economy. What is their go-to plant? I say outside of the global economy because they don't have access to medicinal mushroom from China. It's not a common thing in Madagascar. They don't have goji berry. They don't have cordyceps. They don't have any of those. So what do they have from Madagascar? And they have one specific species of aloe called Aloe macroclada, used for centuries as a product called locally Vahona, and it's used for all kinds of health issues. We tested it. We found this is the strongest ingredient that we have so far documented on stem cells. We have sea buckthorn berry from the Tibetan plateau. We have a seaweed coming from South America, from Patagonia, Norogensin. And so we have now in STEMREGEN the top 5 plant extract that we have documented will, within 2 to 3 hours after consumption, will up to double the number of stem cells in your blood circulation. And that's what we have with STEMREGEN. So it's a blend of these plants. You take 2 capsules, you will conservatively release about 10 million of your own stem cells. We can quantify 10 million additional stem cells in your blood circulation that are available on that day to either participate to tissue repair or simply replace the cells that are being lost.
Yeah, and I love this product. I am personally taking it myself as well. I think I'm on my 4th or 5th bottle. I have it right here, but it is empty and my subscription is on the way. And what I love about it and these ingredients is that it really is rooted in ancient wisdom and indigenous cultures. This is actually not new. This is just new to us and almost like a rediscovery, if you will.